This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in the NFL, Week 9, here at Place to Be Nation. I have so much trouble saying this. Place to Be Nation Sports Network 2.0. I'm your co-host, the Cowboy, joined by the esteemed, the legendary, the one and only, my favorite guy, and yours too, John D'Amato. How's it going, John?
Hey, pretty good. Thank you. I sweated it out, but I'm glad I survived the trade deadline this week. I was worried you were going to trade me for like a 9th-round draft pick, but it didn't happen. You kept me around, and I appreciate that. I'll try to keep up the high standards. I know you had a parade in your area today. You guys celebrate another championship in another sport, which is great. Congratulations. And I'll try to keep up. I'll try to bring some championship analysis.
The championship analysis, it's always there. We don't trade our good people. We don't trade our A players.
And also, I want to give a shout out. We had a lot of kudos, a lot of compliments from our loyal listeners. We really appreciate that. So we'll try to bring the heat for you once again this week and every week.
Yeah, thanks guys. It's humbling that folks are listening and want to hear these two dudes just talk football. I love doing it. So keep listening so that we can keep doing it. I know you got to put up with me just to hear John, but I'll try not to bore you to tears.
Oh, come on. And also we're going to get a bonus this week because me and Roger are going to be hitting the NYC for UFC 230, and we're going to get the Cowboys expert predictions on a couple of FC fights at the end of the podcast. So,
absolutely.
Get your checkbooks out or your credit cards.
Especially if you're in New Jersey, it's very easy. Very, very easy to do. So yeah, we're gonna be at the Madison Square Garden, UFC 230. Just the two of us. It's just the way I like it. You know, the Cowboy kind of double booked himself, which happened. So if this isn't dedication, I'm not one for self-gloss. But if this isn't dedication, I'm going to a wedding Saturday at 4:00 in Pennsylvania. I live in Rhode Island. I'm going to a wedding at 4:00 in Pennsylvania. I was able to bang out of the reception so that I can be there for exactly when the card on FX starts, the prelims. So you only live once, John. You might as well squeeze as much in as you can. You know what I mean?
Cowboy, we have to save it probably for another podcast, maybe another topic, but you could give some expert advice on how to keep a happy marriage and still catch all your UFCs and all your Sunday games and everything. I got some guys complaining that they can't get out one weekend a year, so you could give some expert advice on that. But that's probably for another podcast.
It's all about the choice. It's got nothing to do with me. I just made a good choice.
Happy wife, happy life.
Happy wife, happy life. That is correct, sir. So yeah, this is going to be a fantastic episode. So to clue you guys in on something, if we sound a little awkward, John and I had some technical difficulties, some Skype update issues on my end here, and we had to record the open about 17 times. So I think we perfected it around number 8, and now it's just like Groundhog Day. We're not laughing at the jokes, even though they were really funny. It's because we've heard them before. Moving on. So we've teased it. We teased it last week. We heard about it in the chat. So this is going to be your mid-season awards show, and we're also go through the mid-season awards, hit all the big ones, talk about the best and the worst of the NFL thus far through 8 weeks of the season. We're also going to touch on the 3 big games this week: Pittsburgh, Baltimore, New Orleans, and the Rams, and Patriots, Packers. Those are really your 3 kind of premium games. So we'll hit on those for you. We'll take a look back a little bit at last week, give you some UFC. It's going to be like the old days in the sports lounge where you just never know where the story is going to go. I just do know that we'll keep it under 3 hours. Am I right?
We're going to keep it under 6 hours too.
Yes. We're not. We've gotten feedback before that the length of the podcast at an hour is good, and I never thought I could do it in an hour, but just needed the right co-host. Just like picking a wife, picking the co-host who compliments you is a big thing.
I'm the last person to give advice in that other area you talk about, but sometimes less is more, from what I hear.
Absolutely, I've been hearing that my whole life. You know what I mean?
Once again, that's for another podcast.
All right, so let's just get right into it. So, let's work our way up to MVP. Let's start with the rookies of the year. So we'll kind of go back and forth. I'll let you go first, John, or everyone wants to hear from you anyway. So, offensive rookie of the year.
Hey, you're too kind. That would. Unfortunately, his great performances and his yardage and great fantasy stats haven't led to more than one win from his team. But Saquon Barkley is going to be the choice there.
Head and shoulders. I think it's an easy call, even with the team being pretty dreadful. It isn't his fault. He's a generational talent. He's for all the crap the offensive line gets, he does okay. So he's doing a lot of it on his own. I think you could make an argument he's the best running back in the NFL right now, like him or Gurley. Like just that added dimension as a receiver. I mean, as far as a guy who's a great handoff running back, he's the best receiving back I think I've ever seen. He's like right in that Marshall Faulk kind of guy who you split him out and he's like better than Sterling Shepard as a wide receiver. So lots of losses this year, but I think very, very bright future ahead there. Pretty obvious pick. Just to talk about any other guys, I think Darnold has acquitted himself pretty well in other years where there wasn't such a force of nature as the obvious choice. I think he would be my second choice. How about you, John?
Yeah, Darnold and Baker Mayfield. It has above the turmoil and all the overtimes, etc. He's doubled the Browns' wins in 3 years, so you got to give him credit there.
That's true. Bright future for those guys. All right, moving on. Defensive rookie of the year. I'll go here. So tight race, but I like Derwin James out in San Diego. Lasted a little too long in the draft. Fell to pick 17, which seemed like a complete joke at the time, and he's proving that it probably was a complete joke. He's one of those in that Ed Reed sort of mold of a game-changing safety. I think he's got 3.5 sacks already. Improves their defense. Stepped in day one and is probably one of the 5 or 6 best safeties in the NFL. So Derwin James, San Diego Chargers, my pick for defensive rookie of the year.
Okay, it's a slight different. I had him a close second to Darius Leonard of Indianapolis. The Colts, who have absolutely nobody besides Hooker on their defense, and Leonard's just been running around making tackles. He's been quite a force for just an awful defense. He's one shining light over there, and he's helped them out at least get a couple of victories. So.
Yeah, no, that's this is one of the closer races because I think you could make a case for Denzel Ward over in Cleveland as well. He was looked at as sort of a reach at the 4th pick, but he's been absolutely fantastic. Looks like those premium shutdown corners are so tough to come by, and they seem to have a good one.
Absolutely.
All right. Comeback player of the year. You're up, John.
Comeback player of the year. I'll let you go first.
All right. I think, it kind of depends how you look at the award, but to me, Andrew Luck I know the record isn't great, but I think he's on pace to throw 46 touchdown passes. There was true concern that he would either, one, never play again. I mean, it was 480-something days, I believe, that he didn't throw a football. And two, if he did play again, that he was going to be a shell of his former self. And even with a putrid team around him, although to be fair, they've played better lately, but even with not the greatest roster around him, not much of an offensive line, he's still taking hits. I mean, he's throwing the ball more than anyone in the league, more attempts, and he looks every bit the guy he was before the injury. Second for me, and it's kind of a cheapo one, but I guess Deshaun Watson, based on going down with an ACL last year. Got off to a slow start, but has led the Texans on the most impressive 5-game winning streak in the history of football. Just kidding there, but they were impressive this week. But he seems to be a guy who wasn't a flash in the pan. Last year is going to be really good for a really long time. Just a dynamic quarterback. So those are my two.
I'm going to go with I mean, Luck is the obvious choice, but also I'm going to go with J.J. Watt.
Oh, that's a good call.
Yeah, I mean, we're just picking guys. I mean, this is based on guys who missed either all of last year or most of last year, so it's guys coming back from injury. I mean, you can make a case for either one, but I'm going to go with Watt because of he's led him to first place. The team looked like they were dead in the water, and he's saving his coach's job so far. Not just him alone, but he's just come right back to where he was, where he left off as one of the top defensive players. And also, spoiler alert, I'm going to have him as a defensive player of the year too.
All right. I don't agree with that, but
okay, that's good. I just wanted to get out the way. So, yeah.
All right, so perfect segue, my friend. Defensive player of the year, J.J. Watt.
Kill two birds with one stone. That's okay.
He's been fantastic. He's a difference maker, obviously, and probably an even better person than a player. So easy guy to root for. But I have to give it to Aaron Donald. I know he's the reigning defensive player of the year, but especially over the last few weeks, I mean, he is just an absolute game changer. He is just a stud on the defensive line like we haven't seen a lot of. Cannot be blocked by one guy. Gets to the quarterback at will.
And he makes those plays in the fourth quarter, which separates the true all-stars. Some guys fade out towards the end, but in the fourth quarter he makes big plays too. Oh,
he's almost like a running back like that, where he gets like stronger as the game goes on. I don't know if guys get tired blocking him, and he's just got a better motor. But yeah, right. Absolutely. When we're talking Super Bowl, I think, the Rams are probably the favorite. And there are offenses that are, KC's offense, and you could argue New England's offense, and the Saints. Those four offenses are all kind of on the same level, but the Rams D, anchored by him, seems like the kind of D, because of him, that can make that one or two big plays to take them all the way. Forcing fumble on kickoff, it would not be one of those plays, but Ty Montgomery, as a little sidebar, John, has anyone ever fallen from grace so quickly on one play?
Well, I can't stand when like amateur analysis and or the teams and fans where they blame like one player for a game, but that's one of those rare cases where the game was right there. All Rodgers needed was a field goal, and if ever there was a time to blame one person for it, and obviously they did, because they shit-canned him right after.
They did.
And also I guess because they didn't like some of the comments, and he was specifically spoken to and said just make sure you go down. So. And also after he was kind of like laissez-faire about it, blah 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 about it. But yeah, that's one case where one guy just changed the friggin' whole course of the game, and it sucks as a fan I'm not a fan of both teams. You just want to see a good game, but you wanted to see Aaron Rodgers go against that defense and see what he could get. And also, you want to see if the Rams are a real Super Bowl contender. Like, this is a time, hey, you got to step up and you got to stop Aaron Rodgers, not just from getting in the end zone. You got to stop him from getting in field goal range. So that would have been interesting. So it kind of sucks that we got that taken away from us.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone in the world who thinks Rodgers wasn't gonna bring him down for the field goal. I mean, and the stuff you read with Montgomery was that, like you said, they were instructed to take a knee, not bring it out. And so an anonymous guy on the team said that Montgomery was pissed about getting pulled on the previous drive and kind of just did that on his own and then goes out and fumbles. It was a really unfortunate ending. I mean, that loss really hurt the Packers too. They could have really used to steal that game. That game that we had wrong. We thought it was going to be the destruction, and they hung right with them. I mean, the Rams, I don't know what scheme the Packers used in the first, in the first half defensively, but they had Goff just completely confused. I mean, the Rams couldn't do anything. Once the Rams got going, they scored every time they had the ball. But it was, I think some teams are going to be really studying that tape from the first half to try to slow down that offense.
Well, they got 3 sacks on Goff. I mean, there's not much of a secret. If you get to the quarterback, you could stop any offense, but that's easier said than done. But where has that Packer defense been all year? If they could do that in the first half versus the Rams, most of the games they can't stop. They couldn't even stop the freaking 49ers. C.J. Beathard was looking like a Hall of Famer versus them. Where is this? And it looks like they're kind of giving up on the air. They traded Clinton Dix.
Yep, 4th round pick, and I mean he's a very good player. You never give up, I guess, when you have Aaron Rodgers, but they're not sitting pretty. At the very least, I think they're saying that they don't think they have much of a chance to win the Super Bowl with that move, because it's not a move you make if you think you can win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, they're taking it for granted. How many you got? When you got Aaron Rodgers, you're a threat every year. So you should just go all out. But I guess they were Dixon's contract up, and they're not re-signing him. So they said bye, Felicia. But they didn't really make any moves.
Right. All right. Offensive Player of the Year, not to be confused with MVP. These can be 2 different guys, and a lot of times they are 2 different guys. We'll let you handle this one.
All right, Offensive Player of the Year. I'll go with Todd Gurley.
Agreed. Any other year, he'd probably be a runaway front runner for the MVP. But there's a certain guy having a historically good season, but. If there was ever a year where you're gonna, at least through 8 weeks, where you're gonna split MVP from Offensive Player of the Year, I think this is the time to do it. Gurley's been absolutely incredible, having a historically good season, coming off of a historically good season. Like Barkley, he gives you that added dimension. I mean, out of the backfield, and yeah, you can't say enough good things about the guy. I mean, to me. The biggest travesty of the last 25 years in the NFL is how somehow Jeff Fisher, in Todd Gurley's second year, Gurley looked like a bust. He averaged like 3 yards a carry and just looked, this guy was supposed to be good. And,
Goff too, the quarterback too. So.
Yeah, and I mean, at least Goff was a rookie. Yeah. Gurley had a good year the year before. I mean, Fisher... And it goes to show you, that so much of who's a star and who isn't and who we say is great and who isn't, in the NFL more than any other sport, the situation is so important. Like basketball, you put generally speaking, you put LeBron James on a team, that team's going to be very good regardless of who's around him. Baseball, while the sum of the parts may not be great, an individual, if Bryce Harper's playing for the Marlins, and the Marlins suck, Bryce Harper's probably still going to hit 45 home runs, right? But football is the one sport where the situation can dictate that. Like James White, I think, is an example of that. If you put James White on almost any other team, but we'll pick one, call it the the Broncos. He's an afterthought, right? I mean, he's not that player that he is. On the Patriots, he's like one of the best 5 running backs of the NFL this year.
Yep. Perfect example is Shane Vereen with the Giants.
Right. Or even, Deion Lewis has been okay for the Titans. I mean, the Patriots are a good example of that, but it's not just them. There's so many guys toiling away that if they got into the right situation, they could really play.
But Gurley's gonna have a special place in my heart for that play where he went down and with a 2-point lead too.
You hate the fantasy. You hate the fantasy because that just drove a knife into the stomach of a lot of people in the country.
Yeah, I'm a retired fantasy player. I'm in the minority. I know that's a big thing, but yeah, that's got a special place because that's just a selfless team play that shows that he's already got the mentality that he's got the eyes on the prize, the Super Bowl.
Especially a guy who's got he's got a real legitimate shot to, go after that touchdown record. And
sure.
He could miss it by one. It's good to see that. And I think that speaks to the culture they have over there.
Yeah, because especially you go around the league and you see so many selfish plays. You saw one right in that game with we just mentioned with Montgomery, whatever was going on there. But you see so many selfish players all around the league just going for their stats and then. So that's got a special place for me.
Absolutely. All right. How about we do MVP? I think I'm assuming we both have the same guy here, Patrick Mahomes.
Yes.
Pretty unlikely MVP going into the season, but it's a one-horse race right now. He's having a historically great season. It's incredible. It's his first year playing. I believe if the season ended today, his QBR would be the 3rd best of all time for a single season. Not enough good things you could say about the guy. He seems like the perfect quarterback for, one, both the system they're running over there, and 2, for the new NFL. He can do it with his legs. He's got a bazooka for an arm. You just surround him with fast guys. And what's really impressed me about him is he's even more dangerous when the play breaks down. And Rodgers is a lot like that, where, he's great from the pocket, but when he starts running around, he's making plays. He's throwing the balls 50 yards downfield, off his back freaking foot. He's just a pleasure. He's just a pleasure to watch. He's passed every test this year. I know they lost to the Patriots, but that certainly wasn't on him. Scoring 40 points, he should win. But
yeah.
He's done it in prime time. He's done it against good teams, against shit teams. It's just an incredible season so far.
That Denver game has clinched it for me because the Denver actually outplayed them and they had them down and he lifted up his game and just with that left-handed pass and it kind of changed the tone of both the teams because Denver went right into the shits after that. That if Denver held on, that victory may have given them some glimmer of hope, but they went down into the dumps, and Casey just rose right up based on his performance in that game. He just lifted them up. 2
touchdowns, primetime game, 2 touchdowns in the 4th quarter on the road against a defense. Say what you want about Denver. The defense is at least good. Maybe not great, but it's a good defense that had held him down the whole game, and he rose up. Completely agree. So, Gurley's probably the obvious second choice, but one dark horse, because they keep talking about it. If Mahomes falters at all, I think it seems like they're kind of itching to get Drew Brees an MVP. If the Saints go 14-2 or something, his numbers will be there. That's a dark horse for you guys where he could get the old Lifetime Achievement Award.
Well, it's still deserving though.
And I don't mean that. I don't mean that negatively. He's great.
his TD to interception ratio is going to be like a ridiculous 37-2 by the end of the year. So that's going to.
He's incredible. Yeah, no, I did not mean that disparagingly at all. But you think if it's close, because he hasn't won one, he's like he's the only of those like real Cadillac quarterbacks, those, top 5 all time kind of quarterbacks who's never won one. And lastly, John, Coach of the Year.
Coach of the Year, I'm going to go with Andy Reid.
Okay, so yeah, that's a good choice.
Just because I believe he's had tougher competition than McVay. I mean, McVay will be an easy choice, and you couldn't argue against it. That would be a good choice, but I just feel they're in a softer division, and Reid's done it against tougher competition.
I think I might go John Gruden. Just kidding.
Coach of the Year, huh? Yeah.
Just kidding. Good old JG. The hits just keep on coming with him. But anyway, they might get a win this week. They may get a win this week. At San Francisco, Thursday night. If CJ Beathard is a game-time decision, if he doesn't play and the Niners have to turn to an undrafted rookie at quarterback, I could see the Raiders potentially winning that game.
It's a Thursday night clash, but you got to the 49ers got to be kicking themselves because they had like a once in a lifetime opportunity. If they had Garoppolo with this schedule in this short of time, playing Arizona twice, the Raiders, and then next Monday against the Giants. I mean they'll never, even when Jimmy G comes back, they'll never get a cake month like that where you could just have 4 of the easiest wins possible and then you just got to win half of the rest of your games, and you could contend for a wild card. They're never going to have it like that. So
yeah,
they got to be kicking themselves.
It's tough. It's a freak injury to Jimmy G. I think Shanahan's got a real long leash there, so I think they'll be fine. They'll end out with another really, really high pick, and
oh yeah, a couple playmakers on defense, and
they could use a receiver.
Sure.
All right, John, mid-season awards. So I have a couple of other kind of questions I wanted to talk about. First, why don't you give me your biggest positive surprise storyline team player of the first half of the season? Positive surprise.
Positive team would have to be the Chargers, under the radar. And not really a player sticks out on them, but the Chargers so far are the positive team, and kind of a surprise there.
Yeah, I'll go. And not trying to be self-serving, but I think the Bengals are they're my surprise team. If you look, it's kind of a weird season in that usually there's like the chalk doesn't do very well. But this year, I mean, with a couple of exceptions that we'll get into, a lot of the teams that you thought were going to be good have been good. The Bengals, everybody picked for 4 or 5 wins. They're 5-3. The Redskins with Adrian Peterson, I mean, I still feel like it's smoke and mirrors, but they're 5-2, so you have to take them seriously at one point or another. So Gruden, the other Gruden, is doing a great job over there.
Yeah, definitely the Redskins. Maybe not so much a surprise player, but I'm absolutely impressed by DJ Swearinger. He's having like a near All-Pro season, and with him and Norman back there, that's how you win. That's how you could surprise people when you have guys like that in your secondary.
He's making you look good, John. You mentioned him last week. DJ Swearinger, and he immediately goes out and gets 2 interceptions.
Well, who did they play? That's really not saying much, but that's
it's 2 picks. He leads the NFL in interceptions now with 4.
Yeah, but I mean, with a team scoring 40, 50 points, that's the only way you can win is you get a couple stops when you got a solid cornerback in Norman and Swearinger back there making plays like that. That's how you can pull out these upsets and grind out these games like they're doing. So.
And I mean, Peterson looks. I mean, he's always been like a physical marvel. Like when he came back from that, that catastrophic knee injury so quickly and broke the rushing record. And but I mean, he's 33, and I mean, he looks great. I mean, he's kind of like a perfect guy to have with Alex Smith, right? To have you got like if you want to manage the game, let your defense make some plays, keep the other offense off the field. He's definitely a guy who can handle 30 carries, 25, 30 carries, no problem. Control that clock. So we'll see.
We did praise him last year. And once again, not to be repetitive, but the lesser known Gruden, definitely a great coaching job. One of the top candidates for Coach of the Year.
Absolutely.
If they keep it up, there's always a second half, and you always got those division games. Philly's coming on. They got Golden Tate, so there's still a lot of work to do. But if they get in the playoffs, that's a good job for Gruden.
Yeah, I was going to say, if they get into the playoffs, I would expect them to lose in the first round, most likely. But just to get there on it, I mean, there was not that expectation this year. Good game, kind of an interesting game for them this week with Atlanta going to Washington. Atlanta, kind of the sexy fantasy team who hasn't played very well. Tough not to like Washington in that game at home.
Yeah, I would lean towards them, but maybe Atlanta has that desperation factor where they're kind of playing where every game is a must-win because they really buried themselves. So maybe it's the week that Atlanta puts them together. But if you put the old gun to the head, I would lean towards the Redskins rolling at home.
Yep, and then the other surprise to me is the Bears being in first place. It's been a little up and down for them, but they, everybody I know picked them to finish last in that division. And, Trubisky, it's not pretty, but he's getting it done with his legs. His coach is taking advantage of his strengths. They've kind of held serve even with Mac hurt. So that's another big surprise. They get the Bills this week with Peterman starting, so that's essentially a bye week for them, most likely. But it's you got to like how they dominated the. I mean, them and the Jets virtually had the same record, and you got to like how they just went out and without Mac they totally dominated that game. They gave the Jets a little glimmer of hope because one of the stupid penalties kept the Jet drive alive to keep the Jets, and the Jets got to 17-10. And they just drove right down and just got first down after first down. They didn't even give the Jets any life after that, giving them the chance for the ball back. So they really took control of that. And Trubisky played a safe game. It was his first game, I think, without any turnovers. So you got to be impressed by them. Yeah, Nagy's a good coach. I mean, they gave the Pats all they wanted the week before. I mean, obviously, very, very competitive game. And it seems like Nagy's kind of, knows what he's doing. He's drawing up game plan specific to the opponent. You're playing the Jets. You don't need to chuck the ball all over the place, right? You want to, let your defense stop them. Don't turn it over and give them short fields. Especially, I mean, the Jets just decimated at receiver in that game.
And I really like that how they use Trey Burton, very versatile
Philly guy.
Yeah,
he threw the least favorite touchdown pass in
his
history of my fandom.
Special in New England, that's for sure. There's nothing special about that.
That's true.
Sorry.
That's true. No, we need to be humble. We need to be reminded that we do lose. We do lose.
Only in the Super Bowl, I guess. Yeah.
All right, then. Last but not least, for the midseason review portion of the show, negative surprise. I'll let you go first. Kind of who underperformance, not what you thought they'd be.
My God,
I got an idea where this is going, but
it's not much of a surprise. But I would say maybe at this time they would be 2-6 or 2-5.
Oh, I didn't mean the Giants.
The 1-7. Yeah, you were way off. But I wasn't expecting much. But I was expecting a 6-10 for the Giants or a 7-9er. But this looks like another 3-13 burger or 2-14. So definitely the Giants on the negative surprise. Just everything falling apart. They changed the whole offensive line, and it's even worse. We got a bum deal with this Nate Solder, gave him the highest paid offensive lineman in history. And
it's all about the system.
Yeah.
I mean they've been worse than anticipated. I know I went out on a limb and picked them to win the division, and you win some, you lose some, but they got to get a quarterback. They got to fix the. I mean, at least it's not a complete lost cause. Like you have some good players. It's just.
I don't know. I wouldn't. I would disagree. It's close to it. Other than Beckham and Landon Collins, there's really not much hope anywhere else.
Saquon.
Barkley. I'm sorry. Jesus Christ. Yeah. How can you forget about him? But anyway, I'm more talking about guys like Shepard and Ingram are kind of overrated. Ingram lead the leagues in drops. Yeah, bad drops. But yeah, last year he led the league in drops.
Fourth down drop.
Yeah,
that was really
but that's not just one. I mean, last year he had a tons, and they keep coming. So he's looking like another Buster Rooney. He can't block anybody. So we already had Flowers and Eli Apple, and he looks like the third of Reese's first-round busts.
I think he's a little better than that. He was the youngest guy in the whole NFL last year, if I'm not mistaken. It was either him or Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah.
But I think he's got a lot of physical tools, and he doesn't seem to be a bonehead.
I don't know. It reminds me of the Giants wanted to draft Eric Ebron at one time. I think it's guys with the initials EE are bad news because he busted out with the Lions. So.
Yeah, but now I mean he's probably in the Pro Bowl. Eric Ebron, Luck has turned that guy's career around.
Yep.
So for me, the biggest two, I kind of have two, but the biggest negative surprise for me is Jacksonville. It's like there was no way this team was going to be bad. Defense wins championships. They have all these pieces, all these just high powered defense. The offense was starting to come together, and they're just not a good team. It's like the old Jaguars. Like they just get worse every week, I think.
It seems like that win over the Patriots was devastating to them. I don't know.
Yeah, like they started reading their press clippings or something, and
they got overconfident, and just everything's gone wrong since that victory. You figure that would spur them and give them confidence, but I guess they weren't strong enough to handle success, which is surprising because they got disciplinarians, Marone, and they got Coughlin as the GM, and the disciplinarians to make sure that they don't get overconfident. But I think all that talk about Ramsey that he does without winning anything is that shows you the kind of the attitude there that they walk around like champions, but they haven't proved it yet.
Yeah.
And also Bortles is just a turnover waiting to happen. I mean, he's got good elusivity, but as soon as he gets hit, he's just heavy on the turnovers.
They got to move on from him, unfortunately. I mean,
that's going to be another thing. I mean, we'll probably get into it in a future podcast, but that's another team that's probably going to be looking at a quarterback next year. Them and Tampa and Miami. It's going to be a lot of in Florida help wanted quarterbacks.
I know Leonard Fournette's a good player.
Yeah, but he can't stay on the field. So
right, even if he could, that team passed on Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes to pick him. He went fourth right after Trubisky, and talk about. I mean, I feel like in a lot of ways they truly are a good quarterback away. Like if you put one of those guys on that team, it's a completely different story. And it's something we saw. Maybe with the Giants this year too, where if you have a chance to take that quarterback, you take that quarterback. Now, could you make the argument that the guys available to the Giants, maybe they didn't think as highly of as Watson as Mahomes. I mean, Watson falling to where he did was ridiculous. Mahomes was kind of a, toolsy guy who jumped up at the end, toward the end of the draft process, but you have to be kicking yourself if you're Jacksonville for that.
Yeah, but see with Jacksonville, they were blinded by by his playoff performance versus the Steelers. He played phenomenal, and also versus
it was the year before, though. It was the year before.
Right. But those two the playoff games, and even versus the Patriots, he played well. So they really couldn't make a move. You can't take the job from him after those performances.
Yeah, I mean they picked him before those performances. They picked Fournette. Do you know what I mean? But
no, I understand.
But I think what it is guys. Bortles went third overall, I believe, which was considered a reach at the time, but. The teams get married to these guys, it's been pretty clear for a couple of years that Bortles probably is never going to be an above average quarterback, but you spend that kind of draft capital on someone, you don't want to bring in another high pick. I mean, you've seen it in Miami, right? With Tannehill. I mean, I've known Tannehill's not a real NFL quarterback since the minute he stepped on the field, and I think anyone with two eyes, but you take a guy in the first round, you want to give him every chance, but you end up missing out on some better options. Yeah,
sometimes it's best to cut bait early.
It's the Patriot way, really.
It always comes back to that. Also, I noticed Josh Gordon had his first disciplinary problem.
But I don't know what's going on there.
It only took a few weeks. He was a little late,
No, but it was weird because Ian Rappaport reported that Gordon had multiple instances of tardiness and was going to be punished by having to miss the first quarter of the game, essentially.
All you got to do is tell him to show up at 4:20 and he'll be there.
But then he started. He started and didn't miss any of the game. And they asked Belichick about it afterward. And Belichick said, I don't know. I have no idea what that's about. You got to go ask the guy that wrote that, which is a typical Belichick answer. But
so Ian, so we should be calling Ian Rappaport, or
it's possible.
We don't want to insult anybody.
It's possible that it was gonna happen, and they saw the report and didn't do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
in support of Gordon. I mean, by all accounts, Brady's taken him under his wing, and they didn't trade for a receiver. It sounds like they were they made offers for both Thomas and Tate, but I mean, he's the guy on the outside for the rest of the year. So I think they're trying to do the opposite of what happened in in Cleveland, and if he fucks up, kind of keep him with the team instead of sending him home. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, to your credit, the Patriot way. I saw a little thing about it, and then they buried it. Just like we still don't know why Malcolm Butler didn't play in the Super Bowl. So,
right.
The Patriots do a good job of that, man. They must have learned from Whitey Bulger, who had to bury their bodies.
Rest in peace.
But Demaryius Thomas, the Pats really they got a boatload of picks in next year. I don't think they want to mess with that mojo. So I think Denver wanted some of their picks for next year, because don't the Pats? I think they got 3 2s next year and 2 1s. So
I think what I had read, what it came down to was that the Pats wanted Denver to eat too much money on the back end. Mm-hmm. So they wanted, in order to get a certain pick, it didn't say what pick, but I think a 2 or a 3 probably makes sense. The Pats wanted Denver to eat some of Thomas's contract, and so they ended up going with Houston's offer instead.
But they really want to keep their picks, and as we've been hearing for the last 15 years, I'm sure with one of those picks, they're going to be looking for a quarterback, a successor to Brady when he decides to retire at age 65.
They have to take one, I mean, it's crazy not to and let him develop. I mean, you can see what developing in that system with Brady still there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the thing with Garoppolo, it just Brady just stayed longer than anyone would have anticipated. But I mean, how long can he realistically play if you draft somebody now? Right? I mean, it's 3 years. It's got to be the max.
Yep. It's more intriguing. It's going to be intriguing.
Absolutely. The All right, so mid-season awards. I think that was great, John. 45 minutes. That took a long time.
I don't know who's responsible, but
it's all right. I think it was a good discussion. I think the listeners are going to love it. So let's talk about those games that we mentioned at the beginning.
Right, 49ers Oakland, Thursday night.
Thursday night, baby. Tune in. I was telling John before the show that Oakland might get a win here. C.J. Beathard, the immortal C.J. Beathard, is a game-time decision. And if he doesn't play, it's the rookie undrafted free agent. So the Raiders may be able to beat the Niners without a quarterback out there. It's possible. But I wouldn't bet my life on it, to say the least.
The same advice that I gave to you guys last week about Patriots-Bills, it holds effect. If you have a lady, Thursday night's a good date night.
It's an awful game. We'll watch it anyway because we have to, but it's an awful game. What's not an awful game? New Orleans Saints, Los Angeles Rams. Now that's a game. Now that is a game, my friend. Let's talk about the Saints because we were both sort of on Minnesota. And boy, the Saints proved us wrong there. I mean, they really, really look for real. I mean, that was a very two in a row at Baltimore and then the Minnesota game. Two really impressive wins for the Saints in a row that have. I thought that they were looking like one of your typical Saints teams. Good, great offense, shit defense, but the defense has improved enough, and I mean they can beat you a number of different ways. I mean this is a real powerhouse matchup. This is the New England KC of the NFC, in my opinion.
Yeah, the Saints have to be optimistic because they didn't even need Breeze hardly. He only threw the ball, like 20 times? And
yeah, he managed the game. I mean, that was it. Game manager, and I mean, they...
Guys stepped up on defense. The defense was larcenous, creating turnovers, and to get Thielen to give up the ball. That
was a hell of a play.
And then, but also on the other hand, Cousins, the demons come back. When he was with the Redskins, a lot of times in big games, he would look outstanding for 5-6 games. But then a big game versus Dallas or Philly, he'd be hit with the turnover bug. So yeah. that's something for the Vikings. A red alert.
He's got a little like Peyton Manning in the playoffs to him that way. Just doesn't show up when the chips are down.
Yeah. Also, he's got one of those. It never stops, man. Manning and Brady. I don't know. I thought we gave.
We put that one to bed a while ago. I think.
Yeah, I think so. Even though Peyton got that one last one on you, his last two good throws of his life were in that championship game. To Owen Daniels.
And then you could have tossed me out there in the Super Bowl, and I would have played better.
Yep.
And they won. Yeah.
So.
But anyway, that's a story for another time. Who do you like here, and why?
I'm going to go with the Saints more because they need it more because they got Carolina breathing down their neck, and I don't think the Rams are going to be as desperate because the Rams pretty much got the division clinched. Although Seattle is hanging in there. But I just think the Saints are going to come out with a little more fire and something to prove. And
the Rams certainly looked shakier last week, right? I mean, you saw some dents in the armor because Green Bay hadn't been playing well.
I like how you said that maybe teams are going to look at that how the Packers played that defense that first half and say, hey, is this the blueprint to stop them?
I mean, they were just blitzing the shit out of him. I mean, to my untrained eye, I mean, they were bringing linebackers. The linebackers were getting through, and Goff wasn't able to do too much about it.
You can only get that gets you through a half, and that's about it. You can't do that all game. You can't blitz all game. The only way to get him is a constant rush from your front four in the fourth quarter. And I don't know if Cam Jordan, the Saints, can bring that. But
Marcus Davenport is a player, man. He is a player. Like he looks like, Peyton doesn't play him that much, but when he's in there, like I think he could be unleashed a little bit in this game.
Sure, and also psychologically, to put that nonsense, loss to the playoffs in Minnesota, to put that to bed right away.
Yeah.
It's good they got to go right back in there and get that win in there. And like I said, the way they did it with a couple of big plays by their maligned secondary, that was key.
Yeah. I mean, if this game in New Orleans, I like the Saints, but I really feel like it's going to be one of these games where the last team that has the ball wins. Like, both defenses are playing better, but both these offenses are just so high-powered. The Saints, I think, will do better against the Rams' passing game, but I don't think they're going to have anything for Gurley, personally. And the Rams, I think Breeze is going to carve them up. I think there's going to be a lot of, keeping the rush off from a lot of quick stuff to Kamara, to Ingram out of the backfield. I see both these teams just going up and down the field.
Yeah, so you're looking at like 41-38 or something.
Something like that. Yeah, it could be a slow start, too, because we've seen that a lot. We've seen that with both of these teams where, it might be 7-0 after the first quarter and then the floodgates open. Yeah, the
only thing I say it won't be that high is because they tend to, especially the Saints, kind of tend to grind you down a little, like longer drives. With Kamara, 15-20 here, not too many big plays. The Rams are more of a big play offense.
It's just I think it's tough, with that Rams front four to get a whole lot going between the tackles.
Yeah, they're gonna get a lot of little screens.
Yeah,
which
I see
are
that as well.
Glorified runs to Michael Thomas and stuff. So, and Kamara, which are glorified runs, little 2-3 yard screens.
Agreed. All right. So we're both on the Saints there, but trepidatious about it.
Oh yeah, I would bet 0 on that.
I mean, I called this a Cadillac game, and I don't know if it really is, but Rodgers against Brady in New England, do or die game for the Packers, who, as you pointed out earlier, maybe are packing it in a little bit with that trade. I have trouble seeing them coming into Foxborough and winning with the way the Pats are playing. Pats defense, against Buffalo, it doesn't mean much, but they've been playing a little bit better. Again, Rodgers could very well. They could just go up and down the field, but tough to see the Packers win in this game. If they do, I think their key to victory is riding, not so much Rodgers, but riding Aaron Jones, who's looked really, really good, keeping the Pats offense off the field, and then, tapping into whatever the hell they were doing against the Rams in the first half. Because Brady's another guy who doesn't deal great with pressure in his face throughout his career. It's been his one Achilles heel.
Yeah, I'm looking at I think the Packers defense is more the one that struggled versus the shitbox 49ers than that. I think that first half was just a fluke, the Rams, and also I think they're going to be disheartened at the way they had it. And they had the Rams, and it was just one player. And now that they got rid of Montgomery, it doesn't mean that they got rid of all their problems. And I don't see this being competitive either. But I was wrong last week, so Packer fans, maybe that's a good sign. But I don't see it being competitive. I see an easy Patriots win.
All right, we'll take that, John. Maybe I'll make it a crazy weekend. I live about 20 minutes from Foxborough Stadium. Maybe I'll make this last second decision when I get back from the wedding after going to the UFC to go watch Brady Rodgers. We'll see.
Yeah, you gotta see one game a year at least, man.
All right, last but not least, Steelers-Ravens. So, biggest rivalry in the NFL. The Ravens got the first game. The Steelers are on a real roll in Baltimore. How do you see this one playing out?
I said the way these two teams go at it, I don't know what the numbers are, but I think they usually split most of their years, and I see the Steelers getting revenge in Baltimore, and especially the Ravens seem to be breaking down a little bit. Their defense is great, but in the fourth quarter they've been faltering the last couple of weeks. So I see the Steelers evening up and getting a split in Baltimore.
Yeah, I agree with you. First game was a little weird in that Baltimore jumped out 14-0, and the Steelers kind of abandoned the run right from the beginning of the game. Baltimore is good against the run, but the way the Steelers seem to have really hit their stride, and the way that they're, it's Connor essentially looks like Le'Veon Bell without the attitude or the paycheck. So I don't think they're missing a beat there. I think they'll establish the run early to set up the pass late. I think it'll be a good game, but I like Pittsburgh as well.
Yeah, and also I think they finally realized, hey, he's not here. We're just gonna play with Connor. Kind of early in the year, all the talk was like, when's Bell coming back? Week 3, or he's gonna come back week 4? He's gonna come back week 5? And now I think they just kind of just got used to playing without him. So
real interesting if they want him back, honestly. Because he, the assumption is he reports by week 10 so that he doesn't, so that they can't franchise tag him again. But I was reading today that, speculation is they might have a wink-wink agreement with him. Listen, you don't want to be here. We don't want to pay you, so we don't want you here. Just don't show up, and we won't franchise you at the end of the year. I think they're really, you talk about chemistry, but with them, I think it's actually important because they've been such a dysfunctional mess at times this year, and they seem to have come together as a team over the last few weeks. And I don't know if you want that poison in the locker room when the guy that's replaced him, his numbers are, he's 15 yards less through this many games from Bell's best season. And that's combined rushing and receiving. I mean, he's doing a great Le'Veon Bell impression, and he certainly seems to be a better locker room guy, given what the guy's been through, and you see his story. I mean, he's definitely the kind of guy you can get behind. That I real interesting if he reports what they do, if they try to ease him back in, or if they just sit him. Right?
Yeah, it's just one of those soap operas. That's why the game doesn't end on Sunday for certain teams and certain players. There's always just drama surrounding them. So
absolutely,
we just got to sit back and see what happens.
So absolutely, John. So we're getting close to time here. So you promised a couple of UFC predictions. So main event. Daniel Cormier versus Derek Lewis, heavyweight championship. I really like both of these guys. I love Derek Lewis as I think he's a lunch pail guy. He drove his truck when Hurricane Harvey hit Houston last year. He drove his truck through the floodwaters and was helping people out. Good guy, but coming off too short of a turnaround, and Cormier's just too good. I think Cormier starches him. Lewis is always dangerous, but
I'm not the expert you are, but I've been following along and reading up. And Lewis, didn't he say after his last fight that he's not going to be ready to fight for a while? That he's out of shape, man.
Money talks, baby.
And also Cormier's got to get a hand thing. So I look for a quick fight in this one. I look for a first round. Whoever takes it, it's not going to be long.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cormier's big advantage is his wrestling. Like Lewis is an okay wrestler, but Cormier is one of the best wrestlers in the history of the UFC. So I think he's going to, Lewis, very dangerous on the feet, but it's not real technical. So it's like Lewis has one chance to win, and that's to hit a home run punch. And Cormier's like the toughest guy to knock out in the world because of his, because of his big head. Like Jones knocked him out, but I mean, he hit him with like the most vicious head kick, and then that still didn't take him out. He had to hit him with about 30 more punches after that. So Cormier, third round. Co-main event, we have Ronaldo Jacare Souza versus Chris Weidman, the hometown guy. Real interesting fight. Both guys really use a win. I like Weidman. Souza's beat Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, maybe the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy in the UFC. but Weidman is not a guy who gets caught in submissions on the feet. Weidman's probably got a little bit of an edge. Weidman has an edge in wrestling, so I think it'll be tight. It could go either way, but I'll go with Weidman by decision.
That's good. Strong Island. The only thing is Weidman was on a roll and was pretty much undefeated. But he hasn't been the same fighter since he took that first one to Rockhold when he tried some crazy spinning back fist.
Yeah, that was on
and then Rockhold.
McGregor Aldo card. Stupid thing he did. He did a wheel kick and ended out, got taken down, and that was it. He also, for those UFC fans or listening, you got to look up his fight with Yoel Romero because he ate the biggest knee like in the history of the UFC in that fight. Real ugly. All right. Looking at the rest of the card, I don't think anyone's going to be super interested in my picks there, so we'll just call it a day. John, as always, it's a pleasure. 8 down, 9 to go, then the playoffs, and then who knows, man? Maybe we take this show on the road, and instead of This Week in the NFL, it's This Week in the Life of Cowboy and JAD. What do you think?
Yes, we have to, for another podcast, we have to take the listeners inside of how the Cowboy prepares for a Sunday of expert analysis. Got to pull back the curtain a little. But
it's a big coffee. And then it's dead silence, just don't bother me. Don't talk to me. This is my time.
Sounds good.
All right, John, your Wednesday column. Would you like to talk about that?
The awards that we discussed a little more thoroughly. I did my own mid-season awards this week, so hopefully there'll be a couple games. This past week, games there wasn't too many that intrigued me where I could get in-depth analysis. So we kind of did a quickie awards thing, but I think there's gonna be some juicy games this week that we'll dive into and we'll write about next week.
Absolutely, John. So everybody check that out. I do not have any columns. Sometimes it's just tough for me to, get off the couch, but I do it for you guys, man. And great episode, John. Always a pleasure. We'll check back in next week.
Thanks, buddy. We'll see you Saturday.
All right, we're out, guys.